Man, 2 weeks in a row. Man, how does this happen? So this is originally intended to be the weekend edition of the Pocket Change Market Report. We're still going to do it on a freaking Monday. Who cares? We ended up taking a couple days, much needed rest just to recharge the batteries. And we are back. We're back on Monday with Pocket Change Market Report. And I have a 4-letter, I guess what you call an acronym, right? You guys probably in law enforcement have heard of the term BOLO. Be on the lookout. All right. So that's going to be kind of a theme, especially when it comes to Lincoln Cents, because we're seeing lots of stories, a lot of chronicling from all sorts of people all across the nation about how they're having a hard time acquiring Lincoln Cents from the bank. Most specifically in box form. Okay, they're kind of shutting off the faucet here, with even a lot of its clients and also business clients as well are seeing the pinch here as the impending doom of the penny is coming. We actually call it the penny apocalypse. We termed that coin here about a week or two ago, and it's kind of sticking. It's kind of crazy how things are just really evolving right now. So it's kind of, if we were at a bar and it's 2 a.m., the bartenders will announce last call. It's last call right now for Lincoln Cents, and the opportunity to have the ability to hunt through them for anything remotely meaningful. Varieties, errors, even wheat cents. People are trying to find those out of boxes. If you're not doing it now, you may never get the opportunity in 2026, which is reported to be the last final year of production of any Lincoln Cents. So we're going to take a look at some of the finds here today coming from eBay within the last, I would say, 48 hours. Pretty simple. You guys know the drill. Just to let you guys know, we are going to be on for 2 shows this week. Actually, 3 shows, okay? We actually have the debut of Thrifty Tees, which is a consignment thrift sale. That's going to be on Saturday. My wife is actually spearheading that. That's her baby. So we have the debut edition of that show coming up here this Saturday. The show is actually up. I haven't put up the 2 shows for this week, but that'll be up here today, sometime this afternoon. We have a Wednesday and a Friday show, like we normally do, and one more show next week, and then we're taking the rest of the month off for Thanksgiving. So a very limited time to be able to hang out with the Blue Ridge Silverhound community, where we all kind of get together. If not for purchasing some really nice coins, maybe some BU rolls of Lincoln Cents, which have been absolutely, positively the hottest thing on the Blue Ridge Silverhound Whatnot channel. We also have a good, nice selection of US type coins. Okay, so we're going to have all that highly represented here on the next 3 Blue Ridge Silverhound shows, and I personally invite you guys to come check it out. If not for just the auctions, it's a great community to talk about coins as well. You could use the QR code, or you could use the links that we'll have down below in the description box and also pinned to the comment section of this video. You sign up under me today, you get $15 off your very first item. That's 1,500 pennies that you're going to save on your very first purchase. That's either with me or any one of the great sellers on the platform. You take your pick and save. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. You're going to see just a really nice variety of coins here today. Starting out with this 1882 O Morgan dollar. Now, we've probably talked about this one at some point in the past. We've been doing, regular video programming, since 2011. I was at October 2011. 14 years of fun and videos. And I think we've talked about this coin twice. So here's your twice baked 1882 O, and it's not just any 1882 O Morgan dollar. This is something that you guys are gonna have to look for if you have an abundance of just various grade Morgan dollars. It doesn't matter if they're lowball, cleaned, XF, AU, mint state. This is a great variety. This is like what I would consider to be one of the top varieties of the Morgan dollar series. And it is the O over S VAM variety. They call this one the flush type because that inner curl, the S, is flush with the O for New Orleans. And this is overall just a really great coin to look for. It's a coin that has a tremendous amount of potential and value, and they're actually quite common. I have found a lot of these over the years that I have paid $25-$30 for. Now they're a little bit higher based off of silver, of course. Silver again jumping up again today, back up over $50 an ounce. But this one right here, ladies and gents, ended up selling for $56.29. A little bit of profit to be made here, which is all fine and dandy and good, because that's why we sell on eBay, with the prospect and possibility that we can make more than what we paid for a certain item, and then just really, really benefit from the profit-taking machine that is eBay. Next one that we have here is actually a group of 8 Lincoln cents, sort of. There's one particular coin that sticks out above and beyond the rest. I don't know if the seller knew what that was, but there's a kind of like a Lincoln cent token that says school money right there. Second row, second coin from the left. But we all look for coins like this specifically to resell. Now, this is a lot of, various mid-airs, off-center strikes, broad strikes, things like that. For the most part, most of them have full readable dates. So it looks like 1989. The most intriguing piece out of all of them here, with exception of the school money, which is probably like maybe a kind of like a plastic kind of compound that they used for that particular piece. That top right coin on there, I see double date on there. So I don't know if maybe this one was double struck. Of some sort. I mean, you could see 2 readable 1989 dates, which is quite intriguing, which probably kind of attributed to a very high sell price for this lot. Probably more than originally estimated that I thought it would sell for before I found out that that could be a double struck Lincoln cent. When we look at the reversal on all these, they all seem to be pretty good. There was also a blank Type 2 planchet over there, top left corner. That bottom left coin is that double struck, off center struck coin. That just kind of, subtly just pokes out right there, with a little bit of a target on its back. So for the 8 coins that you see here, this all ended up selling for $181.50 off of 14 bids. Which is it's a good fair amount of money. All left to the intrigue of the bottom left coin right there, which could be worth potentially hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, if it is indeed a true, genuine, legitimate mint-era coin. All right, and that's something that needs to be seen in hand to be able to understand what we have there on that particular piece. Otherwise, all the other pieces you could sell individually, relist them, and hopefully make more money to recoup what you had spent here, if not making a good fair amount of profit in the process. The token, probably not worth a whole lot. It was probably something that they had made back in the 80s. And, it says school money. So they probably something that they handed out to students, to, possibly trade in for a tray of lunch. I don't know. I've never personally seen that back in my day. And, I'm a 1980s baby. So I definitely have never seen those being circulated or passed around at any of the schools I went to. The next one that we have here, this is actually a very nice variety. It's somewhat scarce, but, with a little bit of dedicated hunting, you could find these. But you're going to have to hunt a rather desirable, if not kind of pricey variety type. This is the 1864 Indian head cent with the L on ribbon type. All right, this is kind of like the transitional type as we move beyond 1864. Longacre's initial is going to be on every other date after 1864. So 1864 was that first year and kind of the ending year of the Cupro white cent variety type. That's the type of composition that they used from 1859 to 1864. The coin is a lot thicker as well because of the composition, but they had transitioned over to bronze during the same time, kind of like 1982 as comparison. But this one has a really strong repunch date. This one has an old attribution number of FS2301. It's a cherry picker's guide type variety featuring the Favaz Stanton catalog number. Very big repunch date, as it's noted right on the 2x2 right there. And it's not particularly a high-end example. I've actually owned one of these, the same very example in XF45 in a holder, unattributed. I ended up cherry picking that bad boy. Really, really good many years ago. So this one right here sold for $142.99. I remember that a coin in this condition with that same variety used to sell for about $60. About 10 years ago, they've gone up quite a bit just due to the popularity of variety hunting these days. And, you know, Indian head cents have some pretty big varieties included all across the series. This is one of them right here. Boy, this thing's rough. This is, you know, if you were going to find a great example of what we call a quote-unquote parking lot coin, you probably come to the right place. This 2007 Lincoln Memorial cent looks like it's been skid around out on the pavement a few times. It's just got a bunch of little marks and nicks all over the place to suggest that it was sitting on the ground at one point. But this one right here, someone actually found one of these on this beater, and it's one of those got beehive die chips that sits right in between one of the bays of the memorial there. So a die chip is formed when a piece of the die had cracked and fallen out, just due to wear and tear, you know, which is quite normal with those dies after striking up 500,000, a million coins, you name it. These dies undergo very rigorous types of things, you know, when it's producing the coins today. So this one right here, even in spite of its many dozens of warts, still ended up selling for $14.95. We had talked about this coin about a week or two ago and how you could find these along with Lincoln cents, but also on Jefferson nickels with that beehive die chip that's stuck to the side of the building. And they easily command 10 to 15 bucks, you know. And if you're BU roll hunting for things like this, if you find one, more than likely you're going to find multiples of that same die chip all throughout the roll of coins. So again, keep this on the back of your mind that these have real value, and you should certainly take advantage of that every opportunity you can while you can still make money on Lincoln cents. A pretty neat one here. I've seen a few of these over the years. This is a 9-year-old quarter today, the Theodore Roosevelt National Park quarter. It's a 2016 P. And if you have your eyes set on 2010 vision, you might be able to see this with the naked eye. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have to grab your magnifier or your jeweler's loupe and really get to work here. There's so much design on the reverse of these national park quarters, and they can be hiding some pretty neat little hidden gems. This one, by the way, has a pretty sizable die chip connecting Theodore Roosevelt's hat to that kind of like that inner rim part where the incuse lettering of Theodore Roosevelt's name and the state preside on the coin. We would normally overlook things like this. I know I would, because with the naked eye, they can be a little bit tough to see. And, I think the least favorite thing that a lot of people like to do is actually hunt through some of the more modern quarters, unless it's like out there, you know, where you could see it with the naked eye. But I was probably more than a little shocked at what this one sold for. There were actually 2 Theodore Roosevelt die chips that sold within the last like 24 hours. This one right here, one of the standouts at $24.40. A quick little buy it now hit. And someone owns this. They might be collecting a progression set where the die chip gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes, which is also something that, you know, is more niche to error collectors that like die chips and just collecting, you know, progression of a certain die chip from its smallest size all the way up to its most advanced terminal state. Here's our next lot of coins. Could there be some hidden value here? We have a lot of 5 off-center struck and broad strike Lincoln cents. Okay, these are all quite nice. Different dates: 1997, 1999, 96, 1988, 1990. And you have a really nice centered broad strike on that 1999 that's right in the middle. It would be also especially neat if it was a wide AM. This one was not, however. But, you know, could there have been some opportunity to make money on these? The 5 lot here sold for $113.49 with 30 bids. Okay, which puts it right around, let's see if I'm mathing here, about $22 and like 40 cents a piece. All right, so I mean, you know, that's a pretty high floor to begin with, but you know, could you sell these for 30 bucks a piece? Maybe the 99 broad strike might be able to hit 40 bucks. We have seen, because of the news of the Lincoln Cent and its departure next year, that even off-center struck modern dated coins have been going up in value as well. I mean, there's no really big surprise here. You know, the rising tides will lift all the ships in the harbor. You know, and that includes, you know, things like this, where these things used to be 15, 20 bucks a piece, and now they have certainly jumped up with all the hype and hoopla of the Lincoln Cent. I mean, we don't talk about half cents that often, let alone classic heads. My goodness, 1809 classic head, half cent. It's a really nice type coin. This one, I would say, a nice solid VF30. I mean, you know, you can't really go wrong here with this one. Great coin to have, and not particularly too expensive either, compared to the classic head large cents, which are really, really tough, especially to find one in problem-free condition, can set you back hundreds of dollars. This one right here, by the way, has a rotated reverse. Not really reflective on the images, because they didn't take any images to show the rotation of that reverse. But I wanted to let you guys know, on these much older, what we call federal age of U.S. coinage, that's like early 1800s, late 1700s, rotated dies are actually kind of the norm on a lot of the dates. So, you know, just to let you guys know that, you know, the quality and the procedural stuff of minting coins back in the day, it's not nearly as strict as it is today. With modern technology, there's a lot more that's desired as the overall quality improves. Back then, it was really not non-existent. So this one right here, nice coin. This one ended up selling for $111.49 with 20 bids. Great type coin regardless, I think. Hitting the nail around the head value-wise for a non-error classic head early date. One of the favorites, 2004D, Wisconsin statehood quarter with the low leaf variety. Okay, you can see that one prefaced right here in this close-up with the arrow. That is not supposed to be on the master design, so this was not by mistake. I would imagine this was intentional to build some variety into this particular coin. Now, it's strange that it ended up on the Denver struck coin, which, you know, Denver Mint is very, they have the best quality control above and beyond any other mint, save for maybe West Point Mint. But this one right here is one that even today is still widely collected across all grades. Now, the most premium examples are going to be high mint state grades, which they really don't pop up in this market raw. A lot of them are graded in 65 and 66 holders. This particular one right here is sold for $96.95, keeping in mind that this one is circulated. Pretty cool one here. A standard staple on the PCMR reports is a Lincoln Cent struck through a late stage capped die, which is what we have here. This one needs no other further introduction, but I will say that someone was having fun with their Photoscape imaging software. They even did the little, you know, reflection at the bottom of the coins. They, you know, paired them up very nicely. Gotta love Photoscape. Nice free software for the base software. I've been using that for over a decade. It's been awesome. This one right here, by the way, is selling for 30 bucks. About as consistent as what you could ask for this particular mint error. Here's another great repunch date. 1867 over 67 variety on a, you know, rather low ball example. Because otherwise, if you had this one in much higher grades, VF and higher, this is a very expensive coin in this variety. They go into the hundreds, if not maybe over $1,000 on certain occasions. But this one right here, if you're looking for one that shows the repunch date very cleanly, even on one that grades out maybe AG like this, I think you're doing okay here. So you can see the repunching of the 6 and 7 at the very top there. Not paying any attention to like the little nick in between the two digits there. Very, very crisp and clear variety designation type. This one, by the way, is selling for $80.52. These things can go absolutely bonkers. I've never really seen a lot of these sell for under like $60, to be absolutely honest. And those are like problem coins that maybe have a little corrosion on them. Something environmental, maybe cleaned at some point. But always a good one to be on the lookout for. The good old BOLO rule here applies. If you're a cherry picker at a coin show, this is the one that I would say I would definitely keep my eyes on, and you guys should too. First piece of currency on the night is this 1999 $20 bill. Obviously, some sort of misaligned overprint or misaligned underprint with some miscuts here because you can see it on the reverse as well. This thing is just all sorts of messed up on what is otherwise technically a modern issue, even though it's not the colorized type that we're all used to seeing. This one right here is selling for a pretty nice sum of cash, $146.49 with 18 bids. The note has seen some circulation wear as well, so it is far from the perfect note. And just know and trust that this is something that you can find out there in circulation with enough dedicated looking. Not the best looking pictures, but this is a 3-pack, unbelievable 1936 Lincoln Wheat Cents, all FS 101 doubled die obverses. My goodness, what an incredible 3-pack here. One of the coins, so much as to say, is like a mint state brown. The top right coin right there has some pretty good luster. In itself is going to be about a $300 to $400 coin. Even raw. But it's too bad that these photos are not that great. However, they really did do a halfway decent job with the close-ups. See the doubling on the date? Pretty unmistakable here of what we have. Even one that's in really nice condition. Top left coin. Bottom right coin. You can still see the doubled tail of the 9 and the 6. Very, very recognizable on the FS 101. And then that's actually the nicer coin, the top left BU brown example. It's got a few carbon spots, which is okay. And some of the other great doubling is on the motto, "In God We Trust." So this is in not only the Cherry Picker's Guide, it's also featured in the Red Book, which is a big deal for its cachet, I guess. But this 3-pack of FS 101s ended up selling for $342.29 with 9 total bids. I would say this is a pretty fair deal. There's a little bit of money to be made. Possibly that mint state coin could be graded and will, further its appeal a little bit more with the attribution on the label. Usually I don't advocate for grading, but, even 3 coins like this that sold as a group ended up doing very well in spite of no grading, being done to any of these coins. I know oftentimes it's not necessary. Save the money, keep it in your pocket. But, it kind of maybe would have been a little bit more beneficial to grade that one nice one out of these 3. And anytime we could cover an old school style $50 bill with some sort of crazy error, it's going to be a great day. This 1990 50 small head features a full 100% back to front wet ink transfer. Man, this is so cool. And you're going to notice that transfer is mirrored. It's going to be backwards. And that's what you want to see with a wet ink transfer. If it's like legible to read left to right, then you know it's not right. This one right here is actually in really nice shape, save for the writing on the reverse, which is not a total deal killer, especially for something so scarce like this. Ended up selling for $414.65. That's how much someone wanted this one bad enough to pay all the money in the world, because it's a rarity that we just don't see that often. And something that's subtle as this is really neat. Good old Bicentennial quarter gaining a little bit more attention these days because of the 250th anniversary coming up next year. This one, hard to believe, was released 50 years ago, and any sort of mint error that you can find, whether it's small or big, is kind of a big deal. This one right here, struck with some dirty dies. You can see a pretty good fair amount of weakness on the date there, where the 1776, is it's not right. It's not right because the clogs were the dies were clogged with grease and dirt. That's a mouthful. And this one right here sold for $17.10. I mean, that's a pretty good deal right there for a quarter that maybe you had received in change from your coffee shop or grocery store. Laminations. We love laminations. They're starting to pop off here. 1934 Lincoln Wheat Cent. Nice size delamination strip on the obverse there. Pretty recognizable. $29.50 with a trio of bids, further just really showcasing the appreciation for these after just being quiet for many decades, and then now people are looking for more affordable eras to collect into. This is one of them here, showing a nice full date and a rather dramatic lamination. We did have some pretty insane cuts this week. This is one of them here. 1983. This thing is beautiful, by the way. Very nice minty red condition coin. Albeit a little bit darker photos, and that's okay. You can see the cut die break there behind Lincoln's head. Honestly, this is one I've never seen before. I'd like to say that I've seen probably about 80% of all the cuds that are featured on the website cudsoncoins.com. This is one of them here that I haven't seen, I don't think, ever. And that's cool. I like seeing new things. This one right here is selling, by the way, for $200. Probably the high price tag is congruent with how scarce it is. Because normally other cuds of this size, we've seen sell for right around $80 to $100. So the $200 price tag kind of like falling in line with a little bit of scarcity here for this particular one. We also have the quote-unquote ATMEX cud, and I'll tell you why we call it that here in a moment. 1974D cud right over the word trust. So for a while, ATMEX, the precious metals dealer, used to sell full rolls of these. Very expensive, might I add. I forgot how much they were, like $600 for a roll of 50. Excuse me. I'm all choked up. It was probably much higher than that. I don't know. I don't recall, but I do know that they had rolls of these. Probably cracked open a mint bag of 1974D Lincolns and found just a metric ton of these. So they went ahead and sold them. And a lot of people bought them. And then they cracked them open and they were beginning to sell them individually on eBay. So at the very beginning, people were making like $30-$40 a piece off these. And then now the whole market's flooded with this particular cut die break. And this is one of those instances where supply greatly diminishes the value of a coin when they're out there in that capacity. It's very speculative how many of these were produced. Because technically a piece of the die had broken, at that point, it doesn't take too much longer before a mint employee finds out that this thing is crumbling right before our very eyes and they need to replace it. But in any event, this particular one sold here for $17, kind of like a fall from grace compared to other cud die breaks where we've seen them command $30 to $50 pretty religiously. And it's this one cud die break right here, along with a whole bunch of like the state quarter cuds, like West Virginia and all that, because they made a whole bunch of those as well. Those are kind of like the couple of exceptions here to the rule of what I consider to be cuds are kings of the arrow world, and their price values are reflected on that. 1894, another monumental repunch date. This one is quite cool. Although the pictures don't really show this one or do it as much justice as the previous couple that we had talked about here today. This is, 1894 is a lowest minted date of the 1890s and going into the 1900s. This one is actually quite scarce in high grades. But, we're looking for the repunched numbers of 8, 9, and 4. The 4 is especially pretty crazy on this one. I would say the coin grades out like good. Good 6, nothing too crazy. And this one ended up selling for $70. So even this one has been jumping up. In low grades like this one, they used to be like $25-$30, like a year or two ago. So now the narrative has changed. More people getting into it. Again, the Lincoln Cent penny apocalypse effect is kind of dragging this one in there as well, even though it's not a Lincoln Cent. It is a cent coin. And oh boy, yeah, this one right here. There's no reverse image, which is kind of puzzling, because if there was anything like crazy, like a carbon spot or damage on the reverse, that could be a deal killer on this one. But 1972 FS101 double to die offers, raw example, ended up coming up on eBay here in the last day or two. And boy, I fall in love with these every time I look at one. I own 2 myself, and it makes me want to buy another. And they're not getting any cheaper, and they're always very expensive. Like this one, for example, I would say is a nice solid AU coin, right? It's very acceptable in today's market standards. However, it sold for $450.15 with 7 bids. Yeah, the market is not going to let up on these or provide any favors for you to get one for a couple $100 unless the thing is trashed. Much of the good ones are going to command $400-$500 plus, even not graded. I mean, take advantage of it while you can. If you want this one on your list, it is one of the biggest double to dies. And boy, I'm not saying that this thing is going to go up a lot a year from now, but there's going to be less of these available because there's going to be more people kind of coming in and buying some of the nicer condition pieces. It might be a good time to just kind of get one while you can. Another crazy one here. Another cap die coin. Yeah, kind of crazy. It looks like the cap was beginning to kind of like fold over and all that on this one here. Pretty crazy. It looks like there's a little bit of brockage too as well. But yeah, I mean, this thing is kind of crazy too. Kind of crazy. And most of them are. This one, by the way, is selling for $83. I think with more of kind of like the brockage details on the front of the coin. That's one attribute that really makes this one above and beyond all the others a little bit better of a coin to buy if you're looking for a cap die strike. Another cut here over the date. The date is a mystery, but it was struck in Denver. The other but is that it has some weird damage right in the middle of the reverse of that coin. On Monticello, you can see some circular kind of scrape marks, which could be indicative of like maybe roll damage or counter damage or something to that effect, when they're running through the machines and they get stuck. That could also do a number. But there's no denying that this one has a big cut right over the date. And it sold for $51.97 with 3 bids. So still doing very well. Even with the post-mid damage on the reverse, can't really do anything about that. Just, if it's one that you need for your collection because you don't have it, then this would be an example to own. Another CUD here. CUDs, by the way, big this week. A lot of CUDs sold. I only featured a few of them because I last time I did a PCMR with like 10 or 12 CUDs where it was like almost half of the video was CUDs. There were like 2 or 3 people that complained to no end. I'm like, dude, these things are being found. And you need to know about it. What's the market going for these? You need to know about the market. And if there's a whole bunch of CUDs that sold in one day or 1 week, you need to know about that too. Maybe there's a movement in the market that you're not privy to that's kind of come to fruition. And, that requires immediate notification. Yeah. So this one here, CUD, right on the base of Lincoln's bust. And this one right here, this is not one I'd say come across too often. I have seen a few of these before. $40.51 with a pair of bids. All right, so not too bad. Good solid sale there. And yeah, how about this CUD? Pretty much half of the reverse die just gave up and fallen out. How it managed to strike a couple pieces before a Mint employee even found out is a mystery to me. But, that's part of the cool thing about the production of our coinage is that it is still very much a human intervention process, which will always lead to more Mint errors. And I couldn't be happier about that, 1991 Lincoln Memorial Cent. This has got to be Probably the crown jewel of cuts is what this one is. And it's on the reverse, which is even more crazier. So when that big piece of the die is gone, it was striking the coin. Obviously, you're going to get a cut like this, but also a tremendous amount of weakness on that same corresponding area on the opposite side of the coin. So you can imagine our friend here that ended up selling this one, finding this one in a roll of pennies, probably fell out of off their bar stool because this thing is insane. How this one even circulated for so long before it was found out is like one of life's greatest mysteries. Yeah, $350 with a couple of bids is what this one ended up selling at. You know, the world is not lost. There is still some treasures to be found. In a world full of like tariffs and inflation and all this other crap, we could certainly all use a cut like this that we can monetize off of. Maybe you guys will agree with me on that one. That's going to go ahead and wrap it up. Nice show today. The Monday edition of the weekend edition of the PCMR. Again, little recap. The info in this video is for educational fun use only, not financial advice. Please collect and or grade your coins responsibly as usual. And that's going to go ahead and wrap her up for today. Thank you again for watching. I'm your host, Sean with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Always a pleasure to hang out and talk about what you can find out there and how much you can make off of it. This is all activity within the last couple days, so very up to the minute for this video. Now, obviously, if you watch this 6 months from now, that's going to change quite dramatically. But today is today, and let's have fun. Best of luck in your hunts. You guys take care. Have a great day. Have a great week, and I will see you on the next coin video. So long.